Hello to everyone. This is the South Asia Democratic Forum's podcast, and today we will be discussing about the 40th anniversary of SAARC. And our guest speaker today is Professor Imitiaz Ahmad, who is a very well-known professor in international relations at the University of Dhaka in Bangladesh. He has his PhD from the Carleton University in Ottawa, and he is also currently the executive director of Center for Alternatives, which is an independent and non-governmental think tank in Bangladesh. He was also the executive director of the Regional Center for Strategic Studies in Colombo in Sri Lanka. Today we've invited Professor Imitiaz Ahmad to speak on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the Charter of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So on the 8th of December in 2025, it marked the 40th anniversary of the SAARC. The objectives of the SAARC when it was initiated in 1985 was to work on regional cooperation on 5 main areas, which is agriculture, rural development, telecommunications, health and population activities. And right now we see that there is a lot of roadblocks ahead thinking of regional cooperation in South Asia with the recent events that happened in the region, particularly with the terrorist attacks of Pahalgam, which led to a diplomatic breakdown between India and Pakistan. So moving forward, what is the role for SAARC in South Asia? This is the question that I like to pose to our guest expert, Professor Imitiaz Ahmad.
Thank you, Nathasha. Well, at this stage, not much. As you know, it got stalled since 2014, as you just mentioned. So there has to be some changes in the understanding, particularly between Pakistan and India, because that is where I think the problem lies. There have been some activities that have continued. Some of the activities, including the South Asian University. I think that's the only big thing that has come out of it. And that again, also in a limited scale, because the idea was to have a university with campuses spread all around South Asia. That has not happened. So that also has its limitations. But on some issues on drug production and certain agricultural measures, there have been some technical committee meetings from time to time, although the summit could not be held since 2014. So we are at a stage where a lot of people have lost hope on the issue of SAARC. So unless some changes are there, I don't think, particularly between India and Pakistan, I don't think the summit will start. But let's also, point out that when it was established 40 years back, and the situation now, particularly the geopolitics, has changed qualitatively. So there has been massive changes in the region, in the Asia itself. So one should also not lose hope. Maybe in some form it will return.
This is an excellent set of reflections on your side. I also would like to ask you a little bit more about South Asia as a region. The 7 founding members of the SAARC were Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And Afghanistan joined the organization in 2007. But now when we think of South Asia, we think of it without Afghanistan or without Maldives and Bhutan. It's just that there are different ways that South Asia has been grouped by different organizations. Do you have any reflections on that?
I don't think you can rule out the 8 countries that are already there, particularly when it comes to SAARC. Yes, the meaning of South Asia has shifted from time to time, but on some issues, particularly if you look at developmental issues, one big country which has really impacted the South Asian countries is China. China now, as we speak, is the largest trading partner of all the South Asian countries, including India. This year, India's trade relationship with China is larger than India's trade relationship with the United States. So in terms of trading regime, China remains number one. But even when it comes to developmental funds, except India, the rest of the South Asian countries, say Bhutan and India, all other countries, whether it's Nepal or Pakistan, Afghanistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, the largest development partner is China. And I've argued in one of the papers written years back that China has literally become a South Asian country economically. Things have moved in different directions in last 40 years. So the concept of South Asia or the geographical entity South Asia, I believe, will include Afghanistan as much. It might include in the future Myanmar. Also, don't forget that there are countries with observer status, and China is one of the SAARC. It has observer status. It's not a full member. So there were changes in the understanding of what this SAARC is all about. I've argued for many years that just like ASEAN has ASEAN plus three, South Asia or SAARC should also think of plus three and make China, Japan, or even the United States, if it wants to, a full member of SAARC to make it more effective. But somehow it got stuck, particularly between India and Pakistan. And I believe unless that gets somehow fixed, it looks like we will have a different kind of SAARC altogether.
I'd like to ask you about SAARC in the face of BIMSTEC and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, because there are these different regional groupings now have their own mandates, and countries of South Asia are also part of these organizations, particularly when we talk about India and China. After the Pahalgam attacks, we see that the change in declaration that came up through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which was to basically get Pakistan and India to cooperate. But that is not based off of the SAARC platform, neither the BIMSTEC, but the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We see China as a major player there with the inclusion of Russia. How do you see SAARC developing itself in the future when there are these kinds of regional groupings where India seems to be more active?
Yeah, that's quite ironic because here India and Pakistan can't sit together when it comes to SAARC, but they sit together perfectly in Shanghai cooperation. And I've raised this issue several times that if you can work in the Shanghai cooperation, why can't you work together in SAARC? So it really doesn't make it sense. I think it has um, an illogical issue, particularly when it comes to India trying to win over in the domestic constituency, because in India, as you know, the anti-Pakistan feeling is very high, as in Pakistan, anti-Indian feeling is also very high. And in both these countries, I think the politicians, they use this what you call negative politics for domestic purpose, largely to win elections and remain in power. So, and anti-Indianism works in Pakistan as much as anti-Pakistan works in India. Maybe when it comes to Shanghai cooperation, I think it is looked at differently. But quite, it's quite an irony, I would say, because, for example, Bangladesh is not a member of Shanghai Cooperation for some reason, which is also very odd. And I've argued also in many platforms why Bangladesh never got serious in getting into Shanghai Cooperation. So I guess the policy makers, either they are not serious, and that was the statement I heard from one of the former foreign secretary of Bangladesh when I asked him, why are we not in Shanghai Cooperation? And he said, we never took it seriously. We tried once, but nobody is interested, which I found it quite, odd. So maybe, the policymakers, they have their own agenda. They don't want to change. They don't see benefit to their personal interest. It also bothers me and surprises me that why the South Asian countries cannot work together. You can have differences, but why can't you work together and continue with the summit and all? But I guess the mindset is critical here. And we have not worked on the mindset. I think the problem with South Asian or SAARC cooperation was that too many economics were involved, and they quickly focused on trade, and particularly on trade, which is a non-starter because the South Asian intra-trade is, I don't think it has gone beyond 6% anyway, because we produce the same thing, and our profit comes largely from exporting to developed countries. So I think that was a bad start to start with trade and connectivity. I think more emphasis should have been given on education and on the mindset, which incidentally I was involved because I was the first person to write a paper on South Asian University way back in 1992. And then it became a project under Ford Foundation. And when Manmohan Singh came, the Ford Foundation head was Gauhar Rizvi, a Bangladeshi. He came to know firsthand from me what it was all about, and that way it got materialized to the point that I was one of the founding members from Bangladesh side in 2007 when South Asian University was established. But again, I think the Indian bureaucracy made a mess of it. First of all, they wanted everything in Delhi, and we had to work hard not to have South Asia of that kind, like any other university, but to have a different kind of university. And then at the end, we succeeded only by having in the South Asian University Charter that the main campus will be in Delhi, suggesting or implying that there will be other campuses. But then the vice chancellor who was made the vice chancellor was a good friend of Manmohan Singh, and that's the reason why he became the vice chancellor. But he was not a South Asian. He was more an Indian than a South Asian. He has not worked on South Asia. All his work is on India. Some of us, like, we have worked on South Asia, worked on Sri Lanka. I've written on Sri Lankan politics. I worked on Pakistan politics. I have also, participated in the election. I was member of the election monitor. I've worked with Indians for years, with Nepalis. So, some of us, we had this South Asian mind. But the first vice chancellor made South Asian University into what I said to him, an Indian University of South Asia, rather than South Asian University. And so they put a moratorium for 5 years, but that 5 years went way back, long back. It was finished, but still nobody has taken over and created the regional campuses. And I remember a month back talking to our High Commissioner, Bangladesh High Commissioner in Delhi, a young friend of mine, and he was also involved when South Asian University was established because he was then our person in Kathmandu SAARC Secretariat. So I think he was one of the directors, so he knows very well. So he thought that we could start on the campus. But I guess now with Bangladesh politics heading for election, maybe when the elected government comes, and if BNP comes to power, in all indications shows that BNP is coming to power, they probably will have a bigger interest on SAARC because it was Zia Rahman's idea. Floating this idea of SAARC came from Zia Rahman. So there would be reasons for BNP to make it more effective. But, we have to wait for that. But I guess the mindset, going back to the question that I was responding to, is the mindset has not been created to the point it should, to have a South Asian mind. In order to have SAARC really make a difference to 1.5 billion people or more than that, I believe, would require a South Asian mind. And the Charter of South Asian University clearly outlines that the purpose of this university is to create South Asian mind. But that is not so easy because the disciplines that were made were just traditional disciplines like biochemistry or economics, something very traditional. And I don't know why. Because our idea, the paper that I wrote, was that the faculties ought to be, thematic. For example, faculty of peace studies, faculty of water futures, a faculty of comparative religion, something of that kind. Faculties which are not there in the traditional universities. But then the Indian bureaucracy and also I think Gauhar Rizvi, he also did not understand. So the original idea got lost. But we had good number of people in the original idea. We had Ashish Nandi from India, a well-known psychologist. We had Jayadav Unyangoda from,
Sri Lanka.
from Sri Lanka. We had Kanti Bajpai from India. We had Ajay Dikshit from Nepal. We had Zia Mia, a physicist from Pakistan. So we had a good number of people thinking of university very differently. But the bureaucracy is up until now made a mess of it. But I'm a patient person. I still think that one day we will be able to create an university very different. So once you have the mindset and once you see the possibility of South Asians working together and making the best of all, then probably we'll be able to get something out of a SAARC. So we just have to wait and see. Maybe time will come when things will change.
Professor, when we talk about South Asia and we talk about regional cooperation in terms of economics, of trade, commerce, and integration in these areas, countries always put their national interests first. So if it is more advantageous to do commerce with China, they would go ahead and do commerce with China. Cooperation would be very much limited to things that are considered very non-contentious and not strictly contingent on national interest. So one such area that I've seen is cultural cooperation. So the SAARC Cultural Center is in Colombo in Sri Lanka. So just last year in 2025, there was the annual SAARC Heritage Forum from September to October, and it was presided by the Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Harini Amarasuriya. So at this particular regional grouping, they were speaking about creating cultural trails connecting Buddhist historical sites and sacred sites associated with Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and other faiths, and to promote this sort of spiritual journeys, cultural heritage cooperation in South Asia. So the concept of having a university also, it ties together with this idea of promoting cultural heritage in South
Absolutely.
Asia. And thinking of that and moving forward, I think there will be more people in the future who might take these ideas forward if it wasn't for the bureaucracy and the red tape. So would you have any other reflections on this aspect of cultural heritage and regional cooperation in South Asia?
I think culture has been one of the critical issue when it comes to South Asia. And the first paper that I wrote back in 1982, the title was Reformulating Culture and Thought, and with the subtitle A Plea for a South Asian University. So that was the title of the paper. Uh, People have forgotten how not only the Buddhist heritage, but also connected. The Sufis of Pakistan, of India, Bangladesh, of Afghanistan, they're all connected. But somehow it got lost and nobody has really taken serious effort to reconnect them. Musically, we are all connected. The rag, the what you call the arithmetic of music, if I can use the word, in Lahore is same as in Colombo and in Kathmandu and in Dhaka and in Delhi. The rag is same, and we can immediately, when we hear the tune, we can understand. Not to mention that a Bengali poet contributed to the national anthem of three countries, including Sri Lanka. The tune is Tagorean, the national anthem that Sri Lanka has. The lyric of both Bangladesh and India are the same person, Tagore contributes. So one poet contributing. That's what South Asia is all about. So musically, culturally, gastronomically, for example, the food is superbly connected. But these are the areas that have not really gone into the mindset. That's the problem. The mindset has been very insular and a kind of a silo to the point of reproducing the European history, if I can make it, if I can use it in generally to speak. It fell into the trap of modernity or singularity. And that has created the problem. But there are, a lot of things to work on. Water is the other issue, which so we thought about a future faculty of water futures, because the water is connected all of the South Asian countries in many ways. So there are areas which need to be brought up, but then you also have to deal with national bureaucracies in each of these countries. They have their own compulsions, maybe. I think in coming days, they will also see the merit of investing more on education and more on the mindset. And once that happens, I believe we will have a critical mass who will have a South Asian mind and will try to make a difference to, to South Asian people in terms of their development, in terms of infrastructure. But in many ways, we are lagging. We are lagging ASEAN. We are, of course, lagging China. If you look at their connectivity, we still talk about history so much and the negative side of our history, not the positive side of our history. Nothing moves. Everything stops at the border. But in this transforming geopolitics, where you're moving from geopolitics of conflict to geopolitics of cooperation, you need to be more creative. So I'm hopeful because if you look at geopolitics itself, it has changed so much. If you look currently, yes, we have problem with Donald Trump and the United States, of course, but that, everybody will say it's a declining power because there are other powers which have really come up economically, particularly. The human aspirations have also come up, and we are more connected than ever. Even this podcast, which would have been impossible 10 years back or even 5 years back, but now it's a common thing to have a podcast where, where a Sri Lankan and a Bangladeshi are talking somewhere, linking Canada. So what I'm saying that we are getting more connected than ever. So you just have to see the good side of it and keep on trying because I think the possibility of South Asia becoming a really productive entity, but unfortunately, it has not really done the thing that they could have done. I think they're still stuck somewhere, but I think it's high time that we invest more on education, on our mindset, and make a difference to the people of South Asia.
Thank you so much for those reflections, Professor Ahmad. But I have one last kind of commentary, and based off that commentary, I'll pose you the last question that I like to ask you. So we were talking about the South Asian mindset and how SAARC, we are speaking of the 40th anniversary of SAARC and the role of SAARC in South Asia in this particular podcast, which is our theme for today. And the reflection that we made is that SAARC is stuck somewhere and it's not moving forward. Having said that, there are certain things about South Asia that connect the region. We all face the same set of problems, and one such thing is natural disasters. So very recently, Cyclone Ditwa hit Sri Lanka, and in November 2025, it killed more people than during the Easter Sunday attack, because it killed around more than 400 people. This is a natural disaster that took so many lives, made so many devastating losses to people. But these floods are common in other parts of South Asia as well. Just in 2017, there were landslides and floods across India, Bangladesh, and Nepal. During this kind of turbulent periods, there are relief and humanitarian assistance among South Asian countries where we see moments of South-South cooperation, particularly during Cyclone Ditwa. India, which is the closest neighbor to Sri Lanka, came in with a parafield hospital and ambulances transported by aircraft. They built trauma care units and operation theaters in Colombo, and this was flown from Agra to Colombo, which is absolutely phenomenal to see that India is also considered a big brother neighbor, but it also comes to aid at times of need. Do you see that in the future, in the field of HADR, humanitarian and disaster relief operations, would there be more cooperation among South Asian countries? And can the SAARC as a platform leverage these aspects and build on them?
Oh, absolutely. I think it also came during the pandemic. If you remember, there was one South Asian online meeting between the head of governments during the pandemic, and they all talked together. I believe even China was there in that meeting anyway. So, in the pandemic also showed that we are all connected and we need each other to get rid of a serious disease and of course in times of disasters. But I don't want to focus only on the negative side of cooperation, because then you have to wait for a disaster to happen and then come
Yes.
together. I think we should move to a direction where people will see activities and employment and hope. So I've always talked about connecting South Asia with high speed railway, because I'm familiar with high speed railway, China's high speed railway. I've seen it developed, traveling China for the last 35 years regularly. I have seen how the high speed train connected literally the whole of China, and there is something to see. The technology is there, and I believe the funds are also there, because if India and Pakistan stops a little bit of their conflict and not spend so much on weapons, they could make all this connecting high speed train. So I want to move forward, because once you have all this understanding of big connectivity, including high speed train from Dhaka to Chittagong, Delhi, or Delhi to Colombo, and it's possible, then you can also get the creative minds, contribute to the South Asian region. Because one problem we have in South Asia, which I don't see so much in Southeast Asia and almost negligible with China, and that is our creative minds. They don't stay in South Asia. They join the diaspora in the West. We have serious problem with our elite. Bulk of the elite of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, I can say, I'm sure of Sri Lanka, the children of the elite, they don't stay in the region and contribute. And that has become a serious problem. You need to have your two legs in in the land to develop. And the Chinese have shown that very much. Some of the Southeast Asian countries have shown that also. Unless you have that, I'm afraid we will not be able to, develop the way we think it should be, because you know mind gets divided uh, here and there, then you really don't put that much effort. So I think the technology is there. I think the understanding also there, but somehow we still lack one. Of course, the political will. Of course, as I say, the mindset is also not to the mark. The kind of efforts that is required. So I believe once we have these three or four things connected, maybe we will have a time when the discussion that we are having today will not be required anymore, and we will have a different kind of a discussion as to how quickly I can go to Colombo. If you look at the technology that we have, it should not be difficult. But look at the mess that we have created. And there's hardly the kind of the dream that one should have, where the creative minds will say, okay, I want to stay put in South Asia and work here. That is, I think, is something that we need to really, really focus on and see how can we help the creative minds, the young creative minds, give them a dream, make that work so that they stay in South Asia. If we fail, it seems that we are failing in that. And what is happening is the Gresham's law is operating, and that is bad money throws away the good money or something. So we are find that the non-state, violent non-state actors are more connected actually throughout South Asia, but not the good. The good people are not connected. That's the unfortunate part. But as I said, I'm still hopeful that things will change. I think we have a good understanding of what to do. It's only we need the right kind of people at the political level to make a difference.
Thank you so much, Professor Ahmed, for your reflections and the ideas that you shared, especially stemming from your own expertise and the experience that you've had working in different parts of South Asia. Because I've known you from the Regional Center for Strategic Studies in Colombo, where you moved to Colombo from Dhaka to work in Colombo and to understand the people, to understand politics at the at a regional level. That sort of expertise and experience is very valuable when we think of how intellectuals in South Asia conceptualize what areas of cooperation can be turned into a reality. With those set of reflections, the right kind of people, changing the mindset, these are the things that we learned today from this podcast and the key takeaways. I'd like to thank you once again for being part of the South Asia Development Forum's Democratic Forums podcast. It is absolutely a pleasure to have had this conversation with you. And moving forward, we would like to have more of these conversations about South Asia, South Asia's cooperation, and what role, what identity can we develop as South Asians. So thank you so much for being
Thank you.
part of this podcast.
Thank you. Take care.
You
Bye
too.
bye. Bye bye.
Bye.